I just did the actual stupidest thing of my entire life. I didn't select my freaking microphone! I didn't select the microphone in Audacity, so now I have to do this all again! Excuse my anger. You don't like... Want my secret cap? I'm always angry! Okay. On with the video, I guess. Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to Lady Qi'ra's Galactic Adventure, where we traverse the universe in our Correlian Corvette Cruiser, the Vindicator. I am, of course, your host on this excursion, Admiral Qi'ra Vonda of the Alliance to Restore the Republic. Sadly, we will not be joined by our resident Jedi Padawan / part-time tour guide Aresi now for the next few weeks, as she's off on a mission with her master on Kashyyyk, highly confidential. This time, we are continuing our exploration of the interior as we travel to the planet Chandrila. If you have any comments before or after takeoff, make sure you leave a review of this podcast on whatever platform you listen on. If you rate 5 stars and leave a message, whether on Apple Podcasts or on the social media sites listed in the show notes, and I will read it on the air. If you have no questions, comments, or concerns, then make sure to, Jabba no bada, be a little short for a stormtrooper, and know that just because you have the ability to speak, that it does not make you intelligent. This week on Lady Qi'ra's Galactic Adventure. Before we head to Chandrila, let's explore the system first. Located in the Bormia sector at L9 in the Galactic grid, the Chandrila system had 7 planets that orbited around a single sun. In canon, we don't have any other names for the sun or the planets except for 2. Chandrila, obviously, and Susubo, the 7th planet that was surrounded by a debris field, put to good use by the rebellion as the graveyard of starship salvage, provided a fast line of defense for the New Republic's first capital. Before we get too far away, let's head over to the Chandrila system in Legends, because I want to actually try and organize myself this time, okay? In Legends, we actually get a name for the sun of the system. It's named Chandrila. How original, I know. Besides its name and location, there is no other information on it, so let's head to the first orbital position, to the planet Explorer. Thought I was gonna burp, sorry. Explorer was a searing rock and was the only planet in the system to have no moons at all. In the second orbital position, we have the planet Chandrila, which we will cover when we cover everything not as cool as it. So, third is L'Aurora. Like Aurora, but L'Aurora. The planet was a toxic rock and was orbited by a single moon with no name. Darrell is now its name. Fourth in position, we have Quenius, a gas giant with 3 moons, all named Darrell, because I said so. Fifth, we have Asimuse, yet another gas giant with 9 moons in orbit, all named Darrell. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, go listen to last week's episode on the Brental system. Also in the Bormia sector, but more on that later. Sixth in position is Dolukar, the last gas giant in the system with 12 moons, all named Darrell. Seventh and last in position is Sisubo, in Legends this time. In Legends, Sisubo was a frozen rock with 1 moon, Darrell. And with that, we're going to circle around to the second orbital position again to cover Chandrila in canon and then Legends. Chandrila was a small blue-green planet with calm seas, rolling hills, and mild seasonal weather. Chandrila, as we all know, is the homeworld of Senator Mon Mothma, and because of this, most of what we know about it is political. So before we get too much into the politics, let's talk about the flora and fauna of the planet first. Chandrila is home to many types of plants, such as balm grass, a soft grass that in springtime turns from red to green, and cedar trees, which we have on Earth, and Qi'ra, whatever you want to call it, Garin trees, that lined the walkway to Hana City's Grand Promenade of the Rebellion. More on that later. There was also Orcanthus, a spiky plant that was found in hills and meadows, much like balm grass changed from red to green in spring. And then there was, coolest name ever, the Shield of Andrasha Geranium, which I don't have a description for, but there are a few of these on board the Halcyon, our sister ship. The final, where Where was I? The final plant listed in the records is the tint olive tree, which is important simply because the treaty that ended the Galactic Civil War was signed underneath it. One of them. Underneath one of them. Hold on, I see. Okay. That's a hat. That's not a person. I thought it was. If you want to see what's happening, head on over to youtube.com/Lady Qi'ra's Galactic Adventure and check it out. Yeah. Oh, and who signed that treaty that ended the war? Well, that's going to be first Senator Mon Mothma and the Grand Vizier Mas Emeda. Pretty cool. I also just realized that my ring light isn't on, but I'm not. Should I turn it on? Should I turn on the ring light? Put in the comments if I should turn on the ring light. Okay, I'm turning on the ring light. Hold on. I have to drop big lights if it'll be alright. Say, I don't know. Okay. Sorry. Moving on to the fauna, we firstly have the boulevard, which has star-tipped beaks that lived on beaches, and marmalfish, which are native to Chandrila's oceans and have no descriptions in my records. There are also pearl shells, a type of aquatic creature caught and processed on the planet, and which also have no physical description. And then there's the prepnob, creatures that can be found in the Garin trees from before, along the Grand Promenade. Yeah. There's also preparts, creatures that could be found in Chandrilan forests that hooted in the night. Then there were skullfin and starlegs, which were also fish that were processed on Chandrila for general consumption. With the physical planet out of the way, let's move on to its history. The people of Chandrila are, by the way, referred to as Chandrilans. Thumbs up. During the times of the Republic, Chandrila was a member of the Galactic Republic and was one of its core founders. During the times of the Clone Wars, Mon Mothma was the senator for Chandrila in the Galactic Senate on Coruscant. I feel like this woman deserves a biography episode just about her, but we should hold off on that until after Andor is over, because we have found out more information about her from the past, 8 weeks? 2 months that Andor has been airing than we have in the 40+ years since her first appearance on a screen. Because if you don't remember, she is in Episode 4, A New Hope. She's in all 3 of the original movies. And in Andor, and in Rebels too, we get to see the real tragedy that is her life. Being forced into an arranged marriage when she's 15, becoming a senator and moving to Coruscant when she's 16, having a child that is so much like her father that she despises her. It's no wonder she sacrificed what she did for the rebellion. I mean, can you really blame her? I certainly do not. Mon Mothma may have been the senator for Chandrila, but in the Galactic Republic, of course. But there's also a senate on Chandrila, a local senate, basically, located in their capital, Hana City. Immediately after the Battle of Endor, the New Republic would gather its bearings and build its foundations there, while they would eventually move to Hosnian Prime when they were more established. Hana City is massive and has lots of places to visit, but we have a lot of history to get through, so in your free roam later, feel free to explore the surface of the planet, some of the different buildings. Make sure you hit up the museums, by the way, but only in your free time, not in mine, okay? Backtracking a few years to the reign of the Empire. Early on in the times of rebellion, Chandrila was deemed a safe world by the Alliance to restore the Republic. During the Civil War, Chandrila would openly support the Rebel Alliance, making the planet a target of the Galactic Empire's second Death Star. That's a big problem. As mentioned before, following the Battle of Endor in 4 ABY, Chandrila became the capital of the New Republic. The successor government of the Rebel Alliance and the New Republic's Galactic Senate was first established in its capital city. Imperial prisoners from war zones like Coruscant and Akiva were imprisoned here, and the planet was placed under the protection of the New Republic's Vanguard Squadron, which may sound familiar to a few of you. This new and improved Senate was tricked very early on by Imperial forces, more specifically Grand Admiral Ray Sloan, who offered to meet with them to conduct peace talks near Hana City, which was a pretext for Fleet Admiral Gallius Rax to launch his attack on the new The New Republic leadership, I almost said First Order, what the hell, using the former prisoners as unwilling assassins controlled with inorganic biochips installed in their brains. So it's like the clone army if they were Black Widows. That's interesting, I guess. This led directly to the Battle of Jakku, which marks the official end of the Galactic Civil War. You remember that tree I was talking about before, the Tintorlov tree, where the treaty that ended the war was signed under? Well, the day that happened, the day that treaty was signed, was the day that Ben Solo was born. On Chandrila. Pretty cool. Fun fact! In 34 ABY, Luke Skywalker has like a Force dream when he's on Acto, in which he imagined how things would have been if he hadn't joined the Rebel Alliance and stayed on Tatooine and married Kami Mostrap. And he found out that the Empire would use the Death Star, in that case, to not only destroy Alderaan, but also Mon Cala and Chandrila. And that's all I got for you in canon, so we're going to transition right on over to Legends, alright? So, righty then. I have problems. Maybe I got issues, but I love myself. No, that's not true either. Okay. Okay. It's Legends time, baby. Okay. Not to be repetitive, but let's get into the physical specs of the planet before we move on to the stuff you actually want to talk about, because it's my show and my ship, and I said so. Located in the Chandrila system, in the Vengali shell portion of the core world's Bormir sector, Chandrila was a temperate terrestrial agriworld with a breathable atmosphere. An agriworld is like an agricultural-based planet, right? The remote planet was one of the most sparsely populated in the core and was covered in plains, forests, hills, and oceans, inhabited by an immense amount of plant and wildlife. I've already discussed bomb grass and tintorlop trees, so let's talk about some of the other flora before we get too invested in the history. More like me. I'm me. I will get too invested in the history. So the first plant is the bristing. The bristing is a blooming plant that grew in fields along the shores of the Silver Sea. Then we have the Chandrilan grappleberry, more on this later actually, but it's a type of berry grown in vineyards around the city of Nali, which was fermented and used to make Chandrilan Blue 439, a vintage of fine wine, more on that later, like I said before. There's also this Yinta tree, which grows in the rocky forest of the Hana Wild Game Reserve. Interestingly, there's also a tree of an unknown name, native to Chandrila, and its leaves resembled feathers, and its bark was scored with diamond-shaped patterns. I think it's my job to come up with a name for it. We can't use Daryl, that's for moons only, and Carl is only for the Wellspring of Life. You should go check out that episode. That episode was a lot of fun to make. So how about we call it the Diamondus tree, or Kiarimundi, the better one? Because I don't like Kiarimundi, but Kiarimundi, the better one. What's one hell of a tree? Just saying. Okay, there's also an immense amount of fauna that inhabits the planet in Legends, which we haven't discussed yet. So let's get right into that. First up, we have the blackback, an elusive forest-dwelling bird of prey that lived in the hunting reserve mentioned before, and was a popular prize, although they were well protected by the Chandrilan government after their near extinction. They had a wingspan of about 5 meters and hunted small rodents and squalls. More on squalls in a second. Next up, we have Cairn monks, Cairnmogs, Cairn in Shakespeare. It refers to like a dead body or something like that. So, but they're large spiked lizards that had hooves on their feet and bony protruding spikes, which they rattled and shook in displays of dominance. These creatures hibernate in the winter, mated in the spring, and laid eggs in the fall. The females of the species abandon their clutch of eggs in the winter, leaving their young to incubate while they attempt to survive the cold temperatures. That's brutal. Eek. We then have some unnamed crustaceans, but we do know that there are crustaceans native to the waters of Chandrila. And then we have Gawla, which is an equinoid creature that lived in the reserve. If you like me are wondering what the hell that means, what is an equinoid, then I have an answer for you, my friend. An equine or an equinoid was a horse or horse-like creature. Think of the word equestrian. Now that we've had our basic lesson for the day, also known as our English lesson, let's now talk about the fecklins, which were stumpy herd creatures that made booming noises when they walked, and then squalls. And I have 2 bloody paragraphs on squalls. Squalls are small langomorphs with a surprising amount of information about them. They're covered in fur, have long ears, and hop around, and on average they weighed about 5 kilograms and reached lengths of 30 to 40 centimeters. When in the company of other creatures, they typically begged for food or raided unguarded food stores like dogs. So I guess they're rabbit dog things, but they're also kind of like cats. I don't know. They were renowned for their cuteness, and even further out, most beings found it hard to see them as anything other than adorable. On Chandrila, squalls were normally allowed to roam in and out of the cities as they desired. Thus, they were the cause of much traffic trouble and annoyance for off-worlders. So to reduce this, the Chandrilan government introduced a squall maintenance team, whose only job was to push the population back out of the city after mating season was over. Interesting. Every single year. That's crazy. It was against the law to kill or capture squalls without a permit due to the huge off-world trade of squalls as pets or food. Something I find hilarious about them is that they often wandered aboard ships that were left unlocked. Most ships were, I think. And they were generally not even noticed by local authorities or by the spacefarers who owned the ships. So if the Chandrilan government did somehow find out that a squall had wandered on board, the spacer would have to pay a fine. Because Chandrila has very strict smuggling legislation, which actually gets loosened up later in its history during the Imperial era, which led to a lot of people, like Lando Calrissian, to smuggling a lot of crap in and out of Chandrila. Squalls were incredibly popular and common pets in the core worlds, especially since most young girls either had one or wanted one. The market off-world of Chandrila was not hugely profitable, but was steady due to the fact that the species tended not to breed well away from their home world. To be pets, squalls had to be domesticated and raised from birth, as despite the fact that they could be picked up on the streets, a wild squall was unlikely to stay with a single person and would bite if they felt threatened or wanted to leave. Domesticated squalls, on the other hand, didn't seem to try to escape from their owners, and if left alone for more than 12 hours, would begin to whine as a form of separation anxiety. With such popularity among children, abandonment was a common issue for a squall, and on other planets other than their homeworld, they couldn't really tell the difference between predators and friendly creatures because they just didn't get that training that they would if they were living in the wild. This commonly led to stray, domesticated squall living very, very short lives. And that's all the squall content you are getting today, okay? Maybe you'll see one, more likely more than one, when you do your free roam later. There's also an, quote, unidentified avian listed in the records that has, quote, quicksilver wings. I'm gonna get my water. Taylor Swift was really right when she said, "It's me. Hi. I'm the problem." It's me. I'm a problem today, okay? I'm a problem. I'm an issue, okay? An issue. Baby, I got issues, but I love myself, yeah? Baby, I got issues. Okay, we're done. Stepping away from the nature. Let's talk about the specs of the planet. Planet. Nap. I'm taking a nap when I'm done with this. Chandrila is the second closest planet to its sun, Chandrila, and has 2 moons with names. So you know what that means? It's moon time, baby! feels good to be back, let me tell you. One of those moons was Chandra, a lifeless terrestrial moon that was the larger of Chandrila's natural satellites and was covered in massive craters due to asteroid impacts. The moon... sorry. Okay, I'm good. The moon had a thin atmosphere which caused its barren surface to reflect a lavender-coloured light and looked impossibly large in Chandrila's skies. You know what I say to that? I say, I feel the lavender is creeping up on me. Okay, I don't want to get copywritten by Miss Swift, so we're going to stop there. Chandra's name meant point in the Chandrilan language, by the way. In Chandrilan. The second moon, Chandrakant, was the smaller of the two and was covered in amber-coloured gases that reflected a dull golden light and were toxic to most species. And to that I say, you're so golden. Fruit Man! We love Fruit Man! Fruit Man! I have problems, man. I'm losing it. Chandrakant's name meant counterpoint in the Chandrilan language. Weird fun fact that makes sense. Chandrila's moons were said to represent the value of debate and peaceful coexistence, as well as the importance of moving on when a debate was finished. How very Chandrilan of them. You know. Back to the planet, though. It had a rotation period of 20 standard hours and an orbital period of 368 standard days. The standard being based on the Coruscant cycle, of course. Chandrila is a terrestrial planet, as previously mentioned, with a Type 1 breathable atmosphere, a temperate climate, and a relatively dry hydrosphere, and standard gravity. Lovely. There were two languages primarily spoken here, which were Galactic Basic, as well as High Galactic, which is rather outdated as of late, but notice how Chandrilan is not listed. Think about it. It has a population of 1.2 billion people, when 96% of them were human. The inhabitants of Chandrila tended to live in scattered small communities instead of large metropolises. That word sounds so wrong. Metropolis. Family homes regularly contained a flower garden, a fish pond, and an insect hive. The planet itself is considered a haven for art and culture, so much so that those who left their homeworld typically found employment as diplomats, negotiators, or artists. The art of flat sculpt, created by the Vathkri species, was very popular here, as was dance, spoken word poetry readings, live theatre, and holovids. I would love to live on Chandrila, mate. Chandrilans acquired a reputation throughout the galaxy as arrogant and argumentative, due partly to their emphasis on political education and debate. Since Chandrila is a world with a perfect, quote, perfect climate and a docile animal life, native Chandrilans were unfamiliar with the everyday struggles in less comfortable environments. Well, they were very eager to share their way of life, but found it very shocking, very baffling, when there was a resistance to their ideas. The right to protest on Chandrila was also very unparalleled, and Chandrilans took avid advantage of this. Political engagement and debate was similarly important in Chandrilan society. I have one more weird thing about their cuisine, and then we're back to the actual planet. I'm sorry. Chandrilan cuisine, especially the dish, quote, Chandrilan squall tender meat. That sounds disgusting. Sorry. With a fresh cola sauce, was praised for its use of fresh Chandrilan sourced ingredients. Good on them for being sustainable. We love that for them. Two other dishes, Chandrilan herb tea, which is not a dish, it's a drink, but good job, and Chandrilan hors d'oeuvres, shared the name with the planet, maybe because people are just trying to, bank out. I don't know. There are 4 major cities on this planet, so let's go over them very quickly. Let's start with the one we already know, so we can get on to the more fun stuff. Yay! Hana, or Hana City, is the capital of Chandrila. Originally founded as a fishing village, the city was located on the edge of the Silver Sea. Prior to the Clone Wars, the city was also the location of the mock Galactic Senate, being used to host role plays by the Legislative Youth Program. Some notable people who have been in that Legislative Youth Program are Padme Amidala, Rosh Clovis, Leia Organa, Mon Mothma, the works. And someone else who we're going to mention later, it's going to blow your mind. During the Clone Wars, it was the scene of a tragic bioweapons attack. If you watched Clone Wars, you'd know about this one. Ordered by General Look Durd. The Nemoidian. He's disgusting looking. He makes me sick. He's like the boss nass of Nemoidians, and that's not why he makes me sick. Like, he's just like a terrible person. I love boss nass. Don't put words in my mouth, mate. Okay. The Bryanel Military Academy, the Institute of Antiquities, the Wild Game Reserve, and Spaceport were all located here. Let's move on to our next city, Amita. Amita was a small city located on the Anata continent, which contained the second of 3 spaceports on the planet. There are only 3 spaceports on Chandrila. Compare that to Coruscant. That's crazy. Only 3. Just let that sink in for a second. Amita was also the home to the Chandrilan Academy of Sciences, Chandril Tech Headquarters, Galadin Arboretum, and the Galadin Gardens Botanical Park of Chandrila. That is the longest name to anything ever. You might have had me mention Chandril Tech in that boring list and wonder, why wasn't this mentioned in the capital city? Well, that's because Amita is the only area of the planet zoned for industrial manufacturing. The industry base in the city was required to conform to strict environmental regulations, which discouraged outside investors in the region but allowed native Chandrilans to create a number of advancements in clean manufacturing. Again, good on them for being sustainable. We love to see it in the year of our Lord Dave Filoni 2022. If only Earthlings or Terrans, whatever you call yourselves, would learn this lesson, right? I think we could all learn a few things from the Chandrilans, to be honest, and not just about manufacturing, about debate, about humility. That's what we can all learn. Just don't learn it from Mon Mothma's horrible excuse of a husband, because that man makes me, like, physically sick. He looks like a Qui-Gon Jinn wannabe. Look up, if you haven't seen Andor, just look up a picture of her husband. Just look up Mon Mothma husband. He looks like a Qui-Gon Jinn wannabe. I prefer Liam Neeson, that's all I gotta say. Okay, next city. Next up is the city Naili. Let's say Naili. Located in Chandrila's equatorial belt on the planet's eastern continent. The city was surrounded by countryside and supported a large hover train station. More on hover trains later. There is also a spaceport here, so that's 3 of 3 spaceports, right? Finally, we have Selene. Or Saline? I'm going to say Selene, because saline is salt water. Selene was a port city, not a spaceport city, a port city, as in normal ships. And was home to a government center and the street Guildhead's Way. During the Galactic Civil War, it was the site of the pacification of Selene, a battle in which Imperial forces, commanded by Colonel Maximilian Veers, defeated Rebel Alliance insurgents who had occupied the city. With the city done, it's time for History Time, baby! You know, that just doesn't have the same ring as the other ones. It really doesn't. Whatever. If you are listening to the audio version of this show, then I apologize. And if you want to see me struggle in real time, head over to youtube.com/Lego Qi'ra's Galactic Adventure to see me lose my mind. And if you don't know what I look like, you get to see what I look like for the first time. That'd be pretty cool. I'm really rocking the Victorian/Eddie Munson dude today. And I when I recorded this the first time, I looked really nice. And now I have my robe on and I'm cold. And my throat's starting to close up because I've talked too much. Yeah, we're having a great time. Yeah, it's a great time. Okay, history time, baby! Chandrila was settled by at least by 25,000 BBY, and in that year, it became one of the core founders that came together to form the Republic. After its settlement, the First Great Schism began. The Schism was basically a conflict between rival factions of the Jedi Order that we're gonna make a video about, because that's so interesting to me. Like, religious schism, I find fascinating. Like, okay, not the right character for a second, but actually, I have the right character for a second. Like, I love history, like earthly history, and one of the things I found the most fascinating about it was the Protestant Reformation, and how all of those groups split off from just two. That blew my mind. Back to Star Wars. Rival factions, Jedi Order, I love that. 24,500 BBY, and a minor battle occurred here in Chandrila, but it's not major enough for us to talk about it. At some point in its history, the Chandrilan language was created, but by the Imperial period, it was only used by academic scholars. It's like it almost completely faded out of existence. That's not cool. During the first 5 Alsacan conflicts, which stretched between 17,000 BBY and 12,000 BBY, Chandrila was located in a territory controlled by Alsacon called the Slice. And if you don't know about the Alsacon conflicts, then I recommend that you go check out my episode on the Alsacon conflicts. The episode is literally just called Alsacon Has a Lot of Conflicts. And the premise of the episode is that Alsacon and Coruscant need to go to couples therapy because they have problems. And they need to work it out. They need to work this out. High School Musical 2, anyone? No? Just me? Okay, that's a hill I'm gonna die on. Yeah. Okay, where was I? Alsacon. I worked really hard in that episode. Please go listen to it. I'm very proud of it. Anyways, going a few thousand years in the future, and I mean a few thousand years, at around 3,642 from 12,000 that we just talked about, right? Sorry, oh my god. Redo, 3,642 BBY. A battle did occur on a space station in Chandrilan orbit between the forces of the Sith Empire and the Republic, which was aided by the Chandrilan Security Force. The battle ultimately resulted in the defeat of the Sith Lord Darth Qi'ra. Admiral Brianel of the Security Force fought and died on that station, and a military academy on the surface was later named for her. It's in Hana City, I mentioned it before. By the time of the new Sith Wars, in 2000 BBY, the planet was able to import most of its industrial goods that it needed from other worlds, while making use of its agroforests and automated agri-combined farms to grow beans, grains, and produce for export. The planet was also the location of a Jedi temple and the tomb of the third Jedi Barson Thor, a hero of the Great Galactic War. Chandrila would eventually fall to the Brotherhood of Darkness towards the end of the war, though. As the era of the Republic drew to a close, the Legislative Youth Program, a mock Senate for children, met on Chandrila to emphasize political discourse among the young. The meeting, which was reported on an article by the Holonet News, saw that the youth legislature narrowly approved, get this, the Military Creation Act. What's that remind you of, my friends? Maybe in Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, how Padme Amidala was severely against the Military Creation Act, and how Palpatine made this perfect plot to send her back home, after hiring Jango Fett to kill her, all the fun. So Jar Jar Binks would be on Coruscant, to vote in the favor of using the clone army. Great, right? Great. Right, back to this, though. Speaking of Palpatine, Sheev Palpatine attended this youth program in 67 BBY. And it is while he was on Chandrila that he met Darth Plagueis for the first time. In the middle of the Hana Wild Game Reserve. Isn't that funny? Palpatine totally wouldn't go on to do something absolutely horrific to him, like, kill him in his sleep. Whoops. Fun fact! In 48 BBY, Mon Mothma was born. Very cool. Skipping forward a few more years there. Chandrila would remain loyal to the Republic during the Clone Wars and host the former's 3rd Mid-Rim Sector Army, making it the capital of Sector 3, which is basically just an easier way that they cut up the galaxy so they could, contain more military control. During the conflict, Chandrila was represented by Senators Mon Mothma, Ron Harver, and Dan Skena in the Galactic Senate. In Attack of the Clones, when the vote for the Grand Army of the Republic reached the Senate floor, a lot of employees on Chandrila itself went on strike in protest of the Military Creation Act. Which is incredibly interesting to see how the opinions of people like Padme Amidala, Bail Organa, and Mon Mothma were shared by thousands, probably even billions of people around the galaxy, but was silenced by Palpatine's dictatorship, which really was a dictatorship from the minute he became Supreme Chancellor. Let's be very honest, they just didn't know it yet. Chandrila's era of peace ended during the Clone Wars when the Confederacy carried out an attack on Hana City using a Demotite bioweapon. The weapon was released from security cameras manufactured by S.H.I.E.L.D. Securities and turned thousands of individuals belonging to multiple species into bloody slime and froth. I've literally had nightmares about that thing. It's great. And it reminds me of what they did to the Lasat people. Those guns that... The blasters that Zeb was talking about, in Season 1, literally melts people. They melted the Lasat. Isn't that great? That's fantastic. We love war crimes. The attack was orchestrated by Separatist General Lok Durd, while the weapon itself was created by Bant-Aina Fernan. In the aftermath of the attack, Palpatine, now the Supreme Chancellor, of course, returned to Chandrila in an attempt to, quote, raise the morale of the people of the core worlds, which is really just see the damages for himself, really. But there weren't many people who actually did care. Yeah, Palpatine would actually go on to blame Yoda for not protecting Chandrila. Yoda. Alright. Other planets came to help Chandrila recover from the attack, including Naboo. Naboo and Chandrila have always had a pretty close relationship. And Padme Amidala and Mon Mothma were actually very close friends. Obviously, there's the triad of them and Bail Organa. They're the people who get things done in the Senate before, 2 out of the 3 of them die. That's great. Yeah. Padme's personal assistant, Sovi, actually worked with the Chandrilan Senate to coordinate Naboo's relief efforts there. By the way, Chandrila became part of the new Galactic Empire right after its formation, and the Chandrilan Jesko Comarch was appointed governor, but he was convinced to step down by Mon Mothma. Because when Mon Mothma tells you to do something, you bloody do it. Also, my computer is now automatically trying to autocorrect Mothma to mommy. So Mon Mother Mothma, Mommy Mothma. That's what I call her actually in my notes. That's bad. Sorry. Chandrila is actually in the same Imperial Override sector as Coruscant, which is probably a lot of the reasons why what's it called? Mon Mothma is so why she's being so investigated by the Emperor's people. Right, because she's so close to them. That took forever to say, I'm so sorry. As the Alliance evolved, Chandrila remained one of its major players, and Chandrila was actually one of the only safe worlds proclaimed by the Alliance itself. Pretty cool. And tensions between Chandrila and fellow Alliance planets Alderaan and Corellia ultimately led to the Alliance's appointing of a military commander, General John Dodonna. And if that name sounds familiar to you, you've either watched Star Wars Rebels or you've watched the original trilogy, because he is in both. General Dodonna is the general who leads the attack on the first Death Star in Episode 4, A New Hope. He's the guy with the white hair and the beard, pointing at the screen. Yay! Yeah. Where was I? if anyone listening has watched Rebels, because I know a lot of us have not, which is a problem. Rebels has a lot of important Star Wars information, and it explains a lot of things that Clone Wars did not. Then you would have seen a lot of Mon Mothma's journey already happening, especially if you're now keeping up with Andor. We get to see what happens in Rebels after she finally speaks out against the Emperor's wrongdoings, and how she's smuggled across the galaxy by the Ghost Crew, right, to Yavin 4. Before this journey, though, she was actually forced from her seat in the Senate. And a little bit after that, an exhibit opened in the Institute of Antiquities in Hana City entitled, quote, "The Courage of Palpatine," which is the least successful exhibit in the institution's entire history, which I think is freaking hilarious. Papa Palpatine, because Karma is my boyfriend! Karma is a god! Meanwhile, Allegiance agents on the planet use this institute as a cover, basically, to smuggle in weapons in boxes of crustaceans. Pretty cool. The Commission for the Preservation of the New Order, or COMP-NOR, we've talked about them before, last episode actually, instituted a set of new tariffs on luxury agricultural products from the Bormir sector, as we discussed last week, as I said, on the Brintol system, which you should go listen to. Though the Empire's anger inspired significant violence from the planet's population, many Chandrilans felt that they got like the long end of the stick, right? Like, compared to other people, they had it better. Compare the Chandrilan situation to the plight of the Wookiees on Kashyyyk, or the actual genocide of the entirety of the Geonosian species save for one, or for the Lasat. The Chandrilans, however, were able to successfully lead a rebellion, right? Unlike the other groups, and would fight for the rights of them and all the other people. Well, no, maybe not for the Geonosians. The Geonosians did make the plans for the Death Star. No, they did. Ezra. Click-clack. Sorry, if you watched that episode of Rebels, you know what I'm talking about. After the destruction of the first Death Star, Darth Vader, aka Burnt Chicken Nugget Man himself, traveled to Chandrila with Ensign Nanda of the Imperial Navy, where they killed one of Mon Mothma's family members. Great. They literally blew up their house. At some point before the Battle of Hoth in 3 ABY, multiple Chandrilan families were assisted by the authorities on Chandrila in faking their deaths in a transport crash. Some of them joined the rebellion, and some of them were smuggled off-world. Around the time of the Battle of Endor in 4 ABY, the Imperials deployed a massive invasion force that was ready to move on Chandrila. And had the rebels not won that Battle of Endor, the Chandrilans would have only had a few months before the second Death Star came into their orbit. Not great. And they would have hit Mon Cala too, just like we saw in Luke's vision. Pretty scary. After the Death Star's destruction and on the Emperor's death, Mon Mothma signed the declaration that created the Alliance of Free Planets, the interim government that would eventually become the New Republic. And 6 months after the Battle of Endor, the Empire withdrew all of its ground forces from Chandrila. Not a good sign. That isn't a good sign. Cleared out and abandoned all of their facilities, and deployed 7 Star Destroyers into an Imperial blockade above the planet. Also not great. Thankfully, they grow enough food that they could sustain themselves, and all they really import is agricultural product. If this happened to a planet like Coruscant, they'd have problems. Coruscant imports all of their food supply. Every single bit of their food supply is imported. That's why it's a problem. Where were we? The Chandrilans, they didn't really understand why they were being blockaded, but the real reason was just because it's Mon Mothma's homeworld, and Mon Mothma was way too powerful, and they were afraid of her. So they wanted to take over her. You get it. But this Imperial blockade would fall, because after Admiral Akbar's fleet, takes back Coruscant, they then hop over to Chandrila and free them too. And Mon Mothma returns home. She then took up leadership of her homeworld, and Chandrila became a member in good standing of the New Republic. Then the Yuuzhan Vong War happens, and if this is your first time tuning in, I'm really sorry. One, congrats for making it this far, and two, I've been putting this off for so long, and my script is 30 pages long, and I'm on page 25. We're not talking about the Yuuzhan Vong today. If you really want it, leave it in a review, or go to my socials and tell me, because that's the only way. Okay, yeah, so skipping it. Let's talk a little bit about the political atmosphere on the planet before we close this episode out. All citizens had a direct voice in their government, and were known for arguing politics among each other. The planet was ruled by the democratic Chandrilan House, and the assembly of governors of Chandrila cities. And though the body had floor debates, most of the work was done in private, most like a normal Senate, The Chandrilan House's sessions were rowdy and sarcastic, in contrast with the satted procedure in the Imperial Senate. However, this apparent boorishness hid complex political maneuvering, especially by those who stayed silent. They were often manipulated others from behind the scenes. Spooky. Despite the Chandrilan House's legislative rule, all Chandrilans were able to vote on major issues. Which is, I think, what we need in America, but whatever. So strong was the public's value of democracy that during Imperial rule, Governor Gerald Weissel chose not to disband the Chandrilan House at all. Though debates were largely civil, they sometimes became heated enough to violence. And Chandrilans had little experience with open war. Some natives were known to nurse grudges and even attempt assassination attempts, which led to the development of personal weapons such as the Data Dagger. Pretty cool. Each city was ruled by an elected official known as a governor, and there were over 1,000 governors in office at a given time. Pretty cool. And all of those governors would then go to the house and, individual cities, blah, 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 blah. Actually, we don't need that. There was also a planetary security force, a military, right? The Chandrilan security force, we talked about them. And there was a navy, the Chandrilan Defense Fleet, I know. Very, very original names. Chandrila was one of the few agriworld planets that in the core, and was one of the only ones that did not make use of oxygen factories, which I didn't know were a thing. That's pretty cool. Chandrila specialized in crops that did not last long enough for hyperspace travel, such as Musha fruit, Qi'ra fruit, vegetables, beans, spices. Chandrilan crops were often sold to fine restaurants in the core prior to their harvest. And we talked about the grappa berry from before, which was made into that blue 439, the vintage wine. And at the time of the Clone Wars, Chandrilan wines were found on worlds such as Coruscant and, get this, Tatooine, as in Jabba the Hutt had a couple of bottles in his possession, which are now probably Boba's. Probably. Chandrila's economy was dependent on the sale of its crops to other planets, especially to core worlds. They'd also produce some manufactured of its own, but obviously only in Emira. This manufacturing was not permitted anywhere else on the planet. Pretty cool. Pretty interesting. Different. It's different. It's different. Sorry. What's with all the music references today? I'm having a connection. Because Chandrila's major settlements and farming communities were so spread out, a system of hover trains were built across the planet. These trains, which because of their repulsive field generator posts, could reach speeds of 200 kilometers an hour. And were used to carry people and goods, especially to the planet's spaceports. And we already talked only 3 spaceports on the planet, which is crazy when you compare it to planets like Coruscant or like Alderaan. Very different, right? The travel agency Star Tours, also known as my bosses, carried passengers from other planets to our spaceports. And on that note, we're done! We're done. Whew. And that is everything I have for you on Chandrila and the Chandrila system in both canon and legends. I hope you enjoyed your journey this week and you'll stay safe far aboard the Vindicator. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about your stay, feel free to bring it up with one of our personnel on board via a private message or a DM or a review. Perhaps on our TikTok accounts at Shadow Collective Rules with a Z or at Unidentified Robot, or maybe our Instagram at Lady Qi'ra, which I really don't go on, or perhaps in the review of our show. Please leave a review if you rate 5 stars. And leave a little message on Apple Podcasts or send it to one of my socials. I will read it on the air, as I mentioned before. Next time, we will be journeying to Korlag, and whatever core world I can cover in an hour or less. Until next time, my friends, companions, and droids, may the Force be with you all. I can't really explain it. I haven't got the words. Song stuck in my head right now. Oh my god, I've had a candle on the whole time. Let me show you. It's from champagne, apple, and honey. So fall. We love fall. Here, ready? Peace out. That was anticlimactic. Okay, goodbye.